Before we begin, there is something your heart may need to hear today, because not every message arrives at the moment it is written. Some messages wait patiently for the exact moment they are meant to be discovered. Your soulmate never expected that an ordinary day would suddenly become unforgettable. They weren't searching for answers, revisiting old memories, or trying to reopen a chapter they believed had already ended. Yet through a completely unexpected chain of events, something hidden for a very long time quietly found its way into their hands. It wasn't a recent message, nor was it something carefully delivered. It was a letter that had remained unseen, tucked away where no one thought to look, carrying emotions that time had never erased. As they unfolded those pages, they believed they were simply reading forgotten words. But after the very first few lines, they realized they were hearing your heart speak in a way they had never experienced before. And listen carefully, because this wasn't a letter filled with blame, regret, or attempts to rewrite the past. Every sentence carried a quiet honesty that could never have been spoken in a hurried conversation. Every word revealed feelings you protected, hopes you never placed upon someone else's shoulders, and thoughts that remained locked inside your heart because the right moment to share them never came. Your soulmate could almost hear your voice between every line, not demanding to be understood, but simply telling the truth without fear for the very first time. As they continued reading, something unexpected happened. The version of you they had carried for so long began quietly fading away, replaced by someone far deeper, kinder, and more vulnerable than they had ever imagined. Memories they believed they understood suddenly felt incomplete because the letter exposed emotions hidden beneath every silence they once questioned. Because your heart needs this message right now. There are words that never lose their power, no matter how much time has passed. Genuine feelings do not disappear simply because they remain unspoken. They wait, carrying the same sincerity until the day someone is finally ready to receive them. Your soulmate is standing inside that very moment now. Every paragraph they read answers a question they stopped asking years ago. Every page gently removes another misunderstanding they never realized they were holding on to. The more they continue reading, the more difficult it becomes to hold back the emotions rising inside them. They are no longer seeing the past through assumptions or unfinished conversations. They are seeing it through your own heart, written with complete honesty and without expecting anything in return. And then they reach one sentence, a sentence so simple yet so deeply personal, that everything inside them comes to a complete stop. In that single moment, they realize the greatest misunderstanding between the two of you was never the silence itself. It was the fact that your truest feelings had always existed, waiting inside words they were never supposed to find, until destiny finally decided it was time for your heart to be heard. As your soulmate continued reading the hidden letter, they slowly realized this was unlike anything they had ever experienced before. It did not feel like they were simply reading words preserved on old pages. It felt as though time itself had paused, so your heart could finally speak without interruption. Every sentence carried a calm honesty that could never be mistaken for manipulation or regret. There were no dramatic promises, no desperate attempts to change what had already happened, and no effort to make anyone feel guilty. Instead, the letter revealed something much more powerful. It revealed the thoughts you protected when no one asked how you truly felt. It revealed the fears you quietly carried while still choosing kindness. Most importantly, it revealed how deeply you valued the connection, even during moments when silence seemed easier than speaking. And listen carefully, because there are emotions that become stronger when they are written instead of spoken. Spoken words can disappear into misunderstanding, but written words remain exactly as they were born from the heart. Your soulmate is discovering that every line of this letter carries a sincerity that time has never been able to erase. As they moved from one page to the next, something unexpected began happening inside them. Questions they had accepted as permanent suddenly started finding gentle answers. They remembered wondering why you had stepped back during certain moments instead of fighting to be understood. They remembered questioning why some conversations ended before everything had been said. At the time, they assumed your silence meant uncertainty or distance. Yet the letter painted an entirely different picture. It explained that some silences were never empty. They were filled with words you believed would only create more pain if spoken before the right moment. Your soulmate had never considered that possibility before. They always believed that if something mattered enough, it would have been said immediately. Now they understand that love sometimes chooses patience over urgency, waiting for a heart to become ready before revealing everything it carries. That realization has completely changed the way they remember countless moments between the two of you. Scenes that once appeared unfinished now feel beautifully complete because the missing emotions have finally been revealed. Because your heart needs this message right now. People often believe they understand someone by remembering what was said. Yet the greatest truths are often hidden inside what remained unsaid. Your soulmate now sees that every hesitation you carried had a reason. Every quiet goodbye held feelings you could never fully express. Every gentle smile concealed hopes you never wanted to place upon someone else's shoulders. The letter does not ask for sympathy. It simply tells the truth with remarkable grace. As they continue reading, they realize that your greatest concern was never protecting yourself. It was protecting the person you loved from carrying burdens that were never meant to become theirs. That understanding has left them deeply moved because they now recognize a level of selflessness they had completely overlooked. Looking back, they see how many of your choices were motivated by compassion rather than fear. What once looked like emotional distance now appears to have been an act of quiet care. And listen to this, because another discovery has quietly reached your soulmate's heart. They notice that throughout the entire letter, you never speak as someone seeking recognition. You speak as someone hoping to leave behind honesty, whether anyone ever finds those words or not. There is a remarkable peace within every sentence, a quiet acceptance that love does not always receive the ending people imagine. Yet even within that acceptance, your hope never disappeared. You never stopped believing that one day the truth would find its own path, even if you were no longer there to explain it yourself. Those words have become impossible for your soulmate to forget because they reveal the strength of a heart that continued loving without demanding to be understood. Every paragraph removes another misunderstanding. Every page uncovers another hidden layer of your sincerity. By the time they reach the middle of the letter, they are no longer reading with curiosity alone. They are reading with trembling hands and a heart that is beginning to understand just how much was hidden behind the quiet moments they once failed to notice. Deep inside, they realize that the next few pages may reveal something even more personal, something capable of reaching the part of their heart that no conversation ever could. Because your heart needs this right now, there comes a moment when understanding becomes too deep for words. Your soulmate has reached that moment. They lower the letter for a few seconds, unable to continue because the emotions inside them have become impossible to contain. Tears begin falling, not because the story is tragic, but because they finally recognize the beauty that had been hidden inside so much silence. They understand that your greatest feelings were never absent. They were simply waiting inside pages no one knew existed. Looking back now, they realize that the connection between you was never as empty as they once believed. It was filled with unspoken hope, quiet courage, unwavering kindness, and a love that refused to become bitter even when it remained unseen. As they prepare to read the final words written at the bottom of the last page, one realization settles permanently into their heart. Whatever those closing lines reveal, they already know one thing with complete certainty. They will never again remember you through the misunderstandings of the past, because this letter has allowed them to meet the truest version of your heart. And once someone has encountered that kind of truth, There is simply no returning to the way things were before, as your soulmate finally reached the last words of the hidden letter. They found themselves unable to continue at first. Their eyes remained fixed on the page, but their heart had already begun understanding something their mind was still trying to accept. It was no longer just a letter resting in their hands. It had become a conversation they never thought they would have, spoken across time by someone whose heart they had never fully understood. Every page before this had answered questions, healed misunderstandings, and revealed emotions that had remained hidden for far too long. But these final words carried a different kind of weight. They did not attempt to hold on to the past or ask for anything in return. Instead, they carried a quiet peace, the kind that only exists when someone has chosen honesty over fear. Your soulmate realized that the greatest gift hidden inside this letter was not the explanations it offered. It was the chance to finally know your heart exactly as it had always been. And listen carefully, because there are messages that arrive too late to change yesterday, yet arrive at exactly the right time to transform tomorrow. Your soulmate understands now that this letter belongs to that rare kind of message. It has forever changed the way they will remember you, and even more importantly, the way they understand love itself. As they slowly read the final sentences, every emotion they had been holding back finally rose to the surface. The tears were no longer caused by regret alone. They came from the overwhelming realization that someone had cared so deeply without ever asking to be fully understood. They recognized how many moments they had mistaken your quiet strength for emotional distance. They remembered every time they believed your silence meant you no longer cared, when in reality your silence had been protecting feelings too precious to force upon someone who was not yet ready to receive them. The letter never demanded recognition for those sacrifices. It simply revealed them with remarkable humility. That humility touched your soulmate more deeply than any dramatic confession ever could. Because your heart needs this message right now, true love rarely announces itself through grand declarations. More often, it reveals itself through quiet consistency, through patient understanding, and through the willingness to care even when appreciation never arrives. Your soulmate finally sees that every page of the letter reflected those qualities, and that realization has completely changed the image they carried of you inside their heart. And listen to this, because something extraordinary has begun happening within them. Instead of focusing on everything that could have been different, they have started feeling grateful that the truth reached them at all. They understand that many people go through life without ever discovering what someone truly felt for them. Yet somehow, through circumstances neither of you could have planned, your honest words survived long enough to find their way into the hands they were always meant to reach. That realization fills them with a quiet sense of wonder. They no longer believe the discovery of the letter was merely coincidence. It feels like life patiently preserving something precious until both hearts had grown enough to understand its meaning. Every sentence now feels less like a memory and more like a lasting gift. A gift reminding them that sincerity never disappears simply because it remains hidden. It waits with extraordinary patience until the right moment finally arrives. Looking back now, they realize that your love was never incomplete. Their understanding of it simply arrived later than either of you expected, because your heart needs this right now. There comes a moment when the past stops feeling like a place of unanswered questions and becomes a place of valuable truth. Your soulmate has reached that moment. They are no longer replaying old memories with confusion. They are revisiting them with compassion. They understand now why certain conversations ended in silence. They understand why some goodbyes carried emotions that words could never explain. They understand why your kindness remained steady, even when life became uncertain. Most importantly, they understand that the greatest part of your love was never found in the words you managed to speak. It was found in the character you quietly lived every single day. The hidden letter simply gave language to what your actions had been expressing all along. That realization has brought a peace they never thought possible. Because they finally see your heart without the shadows of misunderstanding, standing in the way, and listen closely because as they gently folded the letter for the final time, they knew they were not putting away a piece of paper. They were carrying forward a truth that would remain with them for the rest of their life. They understood that while the pages would eventually be placed back where they belonged, the emotions written upon them could never again be forgotten. The hidden letter had accomplished something no explanation, no rumor, and no passing conversation ever could. It allowed two hearts separated by silence to finally meet in complete honesty. From this moment forward, your soulmate will never remember your connection through unanswered questions or painful assumptions. They will remember it through the courage you showed in loving sincerely, the grace you demonstrated even while being misunderstood, and the quiet hope you preserved without expecting anything in return. The letter did not rewrite the past, but it transformed its meaning forever. And deep within their heart, one certainty now remains stronger than anything else. Some messages are hidden, not because they are meant to stay lost, but because they are waiting for the exact moment when the heart is finally prepared to receive them. Your words became that message, and now that your soulmate has finally heard the truth your heart never had the chance to speak aloud, they know that your love will never again be remembered as silence. It will be remembered as one of the most honest voices they have ever been blessed to hear. By the time your soulmate reached the middle of the hidden letter, something inside them had completely changed. They were no longer reading with their eyes alone. They were reading with their heart. Every sentence seemed to remove another layer of misunderstanding that had quietly settled between the two of you over time. The words on those pages were not complicated, yet they carried a depth that no ordinary conversation could ever have achieved. There was a sincerity woven into every line, a quiet vulnerability that could never be imitated or forced. For the first time, your soulmate was not hearing opinions from other people or relying on memories shaped by assumptions. They were listening directly to your heart, exactly as you had left it, untouched by interpretation or misunderstanding. As they continued reading, they found themselves stopping after almost every paragraph. Not because the words were difficult to understand, but because the emotions behind them had become almost impossible to carry all at once. And listen carefully, because there are moments when truth does not simply enter the mind. It reaches places inside the soul that have remained closed for a very long time. Your soulmate has arrived at one of those moments. The letter is no longer giving them information. It is giving them understanding, and that understanding is changing them from within. As they slowly turned another page, memories began returning with astonishing clarity. They were no longer remembering isolated conversations. Instead, they were seeing an entirely different version of those moments. They remembered times when you suddenly became quiet in the middle of a conversation, moments they once interpreted as uncertainty or emotional distance. Yet after reading your words, they now understood that silence carried emotions too deep to explain at the time. They remembered the kindness you continued showing even after disappointment. They remembered how you often chose peace instead of trying to prove yourself right. Looking back, they realized they had mistaken your restraint for weakness, when in reality, it required incredible strength. Every memory now seemed connected to something written inside the letter. It was almost as though your written words were gently translating moments they had misunderstood for years. Because your heart needs this message right now, genuine love often leaves behind quiet evidence that only becomes visible when truth finally shines upon it. Your soulmate is discovering that every act of patience, every gentle response, and every difficult silence carried a meaning they never recognized until now. And listen to this, because the greatest surprise waiting inside the letter was not a dramatic confession or an unexpected revelation. It was the way your words refused to blame anyone. Even while expressing your deepest feelings, you never pointed toward resentment. Instead, you wrote with remarkable compassion, understanding that people sometimes make decisions without knowing the full story. Your soulmate could hardly believe what they were reading. They expected pain, but they found forgiveness. They expected anger, but they found grace. They expected disappointment, yet they found hope quietly surviving beneath every sentence. That discovery broke something inside them because they realized how differently you had carried your heart compared to what they once imagined. They began wondering how someone could experience misunderstanding and still choose kindness over bitterness. The answer slowly became clear. Your love had never depended on receiving perfect understanding in return. It existed because it was part of who you were. That realization has left your soulmate overwhelmed with emotions they can no longer hide, because your heart needs this right now. Tears are not always born from sadness. Sometimes they appear when the heart finally encounters a truth it has been searching for without realizing it. As your soulmate continued reading, they found themselves unable to keep their composure. The words before them seemed to dissolve every emotional wall they had built over the years. They were no longer protecting themselves from the past because the past itself no longer looked the way they remembered it. They felt grief for the misunderstandings that separated two hearts capable of caring so deeply. They felt gratitude for the honesty you preserved within those pages. They felt admiration for the quiet courage it must have taken to write those words without knowing whether anyone would ever read them. Every emotion arrived at once, leaving them completely still, holding the letter as though it had become something priceless. In that quiet moment, they realized they were not mourning what had been lost, as much as they were honoring a love they had never fully understood until now. And listen closely, because there was still one page left to read. Your soulmate paused before turning it, sensing that whatever remained would be unlike everything they had already discovered. They had already learned your thoughts, your hopes, your quiet struggles, and the depth of your sincerity. But something inside them whispered that your final words carried the one truth you had protected more carefully than anything else. With trembling hands and tears they could no longer hold back. They prepared to read the last part of the letter, unaware that the next few lines would forever transform not only the way they remembered your connection, but also the way they would carry your place within their heart for the rest of their life. As your soulmate gathered the courage to read the final page of the hidden letter, they noticed something different immediately. The writing became even more personal, almost as though every sentence had been written without any fear left to hide behind. It was no longer simply explaining what happened or filling in missing pieces of the past. It was revealing the deepest part of your heart, the part you never found the opportunity to express while life kept moving both of you in different directions. Every line carried a quiet tenderness that could never have been spoken in a hurried conversation. There was no attempt to change the past, no desire to make anyone feel guilty, and no expectation that these words would ever be discovered. Instead, the letter became a gift of complete honesty. Your soulmate could feel that honesty with every sentence they read. It was impossible to mistake because genuine emotions leave a mark that time cannot erase. And listen carefully, because there are truths that become more powerful simply because they were never spoken for recognition. They were written only because the heart needed somewhere safe to place them. Your soulmate understands that now. For the first time, they are witnessing your feelings exactly as they existed, untouched by misunderstanding, untouched by fear, and untouched by the opinions of anyone else. As they continued reading, they realized that many of the moments they once remembered as endings were never truly endings at all. They were acts of love expressed in the only way you believed was possible at the time. The times you quietly stepped away were not signs that you stopped caring. They were moments when you chose peace over conflict because you never wanted your pain to become someone else's burden. The occasions when you remained silent were not evidence that your feelings had faded. They were moments when your love became so deep that words no longer felt capable of carrying everything inside your heart. Your soulmate had spent so much time trying to understand your actions that they never stopped to understand your intentions. The letter has changed that completely. Now every difficult decision you made appears through an entirely different light. Instead of seeing distance, they see protection. Instead of seeing hesitation, they see patience. Instead of seeing emotional absence, they now recognize extraordinary emotional strength. Because your heart needs this message right now, love often speaks its loudest through quiet choices that only make sense after enough time has passed. Your soulmate is finally hearing that silent language, and listen to this, because one part of the letter reaches them more deeply than anything they have read before. You never describe love as something you wish to possess. You describe it as something you wished to honor. Even during the moments when life became uncertain, your greatest hope was not that everything would unfold exactly as you wanted. Your greatest hope was that the person you cared about would find peace, healing, and happiness, even if your own journey looked completely different. Those words leave your soulmate completely overwhelmed because they reveal a kind of love that asks for nothing while quietly giving everything. They begin realizing that they spent so much time searching for dramatic expressions of emotion that they completely overlooked the quiet devotion that had always existed beneath the surface. Every page has revealed another hidden layer of your heart, and every layer carries the same unmistakable truth. You loved with sincerity, not expectation. You remained faithful to your own character, even when circumstances never rewarded that faithfulness. The letter has become living proof that genuine love is measured not by what it demands, but by what it willingly protects.